This is your Barbados Today evening news update for Tuesday, November the 27th. So glad you could join us. I'm Emmanuel Joseph. Topping the news at this hour, government's continued retrenchment exercise could disrupt next year's sugar crop, warns Sugar Industries and Staff Association. The group is not happy with the decision by the Barbados Agricultural Management Company Limited to begin the process of offering voluntary separation packages to the employees without holding consultations. At a press conference held in the cane fields of Constant Plantation this morning, CISA President Edwin O'Neill explained that in two letters, one dated the October 30th, 2018, and the other dated November 8th, 2018, staff at the BAMC were given until November the 15th to submit their names for voluntary separation with a guarantee of payment by November the 29th if successful. O'Neill told reporters that his organization is yet to receive any information from the BAMC regarding the nature of the packages being offered or the number of persons to be sent home.
By letter of the 19th of November, we as a union wrote to the general manager decrying the tactics employed therein, and with the resolve that since it represented a breach of good industrial relations and at best a most flagrant disrespect to the CISA union, that we would take a decision to report this development to the social partnership through C2SAP. To date, there has been no further response. So, to encapsulate all that has transpired, a company which is categorized as one of the SOEs and ought therefore to be the epitome of what a model employee ought to be, has arbitrarily begun a process without consultation to the union. We have held out the olive branch. We have advised that they need, even at that late stage, to go back and come again, all of which has been to no effect.
In other news this Tuesday, financial services giant Sagicor today announced that it agreed to a $536 million takeover from Canadian company Align Vest. The company has, however, assured that its operations in Barbados will not be affected. Align Vest will acquire Sagicor's shares at $175 through a combination of cash and shares. Sagicor's president and chief executive officer, Dorish Miller, says the transaction is a game changer for Sagicor, and it will accelerate the company's growth strategy and improve access to capital. The two companies are hoping that shareholders and regulators will approve the deal, expected to be completed late in the first quarter or the second quarter of next year. Once the deal is approved, Sagicor and Align Vest will acquire the life insurance operations of Scotiabank in Trinidad and Jamaica. Sagicor says the Scotiabank deal is expected to increase annual income by about $30 million. As the government slashes its payroll, a minister is begging and pleading with the private sector bosses to give their workers a wage increase in a bid to spur economic recovery. Minister of Transport, Works and Maintenance, Dr. William Duguid, made the plea in Parliament on Tuesday while contributing to debate on the Income Tax Amendment and Validation Bill. He argued that it was only fair for the local private sector to give an increase to workers, considering government's recent decision to lower the corporation tax rate from 30% to between 1% and 5.5%, and government's decision to grant civil servants a 5% increase.
They got to give the people an increase. The government is only employing 25,000 people. The private sector is employing 100,000 people. You know how much much that increase would do for the people of Barbados? And you can tell me that we are going to reduce your tax that you pay. So if you were making taxable income of $100,000, you're now going down to $5,000. That means that you now got $95,000 in your company that you didn't have before. But good gracious, you mean to tell me that you ain't going to share that with your employees? You got to look at giving the people an increase.
Meanwhile, opposition leader Bishop Joseph Atherley wants an overhaul of the sweeping powers of ministers to grant tax exemptions and waivers. He told lawmakers in Parliament today that the practice of doling out concessions or tax write-offs is cutting into government's revenues.
We have seen the underperformance of revenue generation by means of VAT. And those who research these things will suggest that the reason for this is because of waivers, exemptions, and zero ratings. The point I'm coming to, Mr. Speaker, is simply this, that to the extent that the VAT continues to underperform, it puts additional pressure on the government of the day, the Ministry of Finance, to resort to other means of revenue generation, to other forms of taxation. And so you move away in that regard from a consumption tax such as VAT, and you impose higher levels of income tax, whether at the personal level or corporate level. And that is how I interpret what has happened in Barbados. We've seen a move towards increase of personal income tax, and by the measures of June this year, the financial statement, the mini budget, we saw a move to increase corporation tax. And I'm suggesting that if VAT underperforms because of a ministerial discretion that allows for waivers and exemptions and all of this without circumscription, then we have a problem.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
Welcome back with news from the region now. One of the largest unions in St. Lucia, the National Workers Union, has accepted the controversial lump sum payment from the government in lieu of an increase in wages for public workers. As we hear in this report from HTS News Force, the payment will be made in time for the 2018 festive season.
As requested by the National Workers Union, there will be money on the road for Christmas for more than 2,500 of its daily paid members employed with the government. As a means of bringing some degree of relief to its members and advancing 2016-2019 wage negotiations with the government negotiating team led by Vern Gill, the National Workers Union opted for an EC $1,000 lump sum payout for each of its members. National Workers Union sources estimate the number of daily paid members at close to 3,000 people. That works out to be close to EC $3 million in total. The settlement was reportedly decided on November 23rd.
We're happy to report that we were able to come to an agreement and that all bargaining unit members of the National Workers Union in government, which had a daily paid employees, will receive a lump sum amount of $1,000 just before Christmas.
The National Workers Union's request for a one-time cash settlement was severely criticized by the St. Lucia Civil Service Association. The CSA, who is an affiliate of the St. Lucia Trade Union Federation, told Newsforce the National Workers Union was selling out.
And on the global front, Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince is facing protests as he continues his Arab tour. More in this report from Reuters Television.
When Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince heads to the G20 summit this week in Argentina, it won't just be protests that follow him. Human Rights Watch has asked Argentina to use a war crimes clause in its constitution to investigate the role of Mohammed bin Salman in possible crimes against humanity in Yemen and the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. The powerful Crown Prince, known as MBS, is currently touring several Arab countries. It's his first trip abroad since the columnist's death in Istanbul's consulate caused a global outcry. Next, he'll head to Buenos Aires, where the rights group says its submission was sent to a federal judge. Argentina's constitution recognizes universal jurisdiction for war crimes and torture. That means judicial authorities can investigate and prosecute suspected crimes, no matter where they were committed.
And that's news, but for the very latest, visit our website at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We are also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as Screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. Now, you can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM. I'm Emmanuel Joseph. Have a fantastic evening.